Well, there we go. All right. We are live here on Submission Radio Live. Apologies for the delays. Things have been cooking. BC has been voting. I'm sure he'll give us a little update on that as well in a second. I appreciate you guys to join us. I am, of course, Dennis Shkarada. There is a ton of stuff happening in the world of MMA, so I'm just going to get to it right away. Joined by the elite of the elite, the best of the best, the sexiest of the sexiest, my favorites to talk to, Jed Meshew and Brian Campbell. Welcome to Submission Radio Live. There's no time to mess around. Let's just get right into it, fellas. It is a crazy time.
Did something happen?
Well, it's a crazy time in
something
MMA.
Happened?
Before we do that, BC, what do you look like at a town hall election?
I just wanted you to know that I voted today and I voted for freedom. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Also, I'd like you to know that this show is called Three Dirt Holes, and I'm happy to be one of them. And also, I'll be rating my top 10 strawweights in order on my Patreon later. So thanks a lot.
Oh, no. Yeah. Guys, he'll talk about other things as well. Don't unsubscribe. All right, guys, let's talk about the big elephant in the room. I mean, is it an elephant or an exciting elephant? I don't even know what I'm talking about. Ilia Topuria is fighting Charles Oliveira. Islam Makhachev vacates his belt. Ali Abdelaziz was on the show just hours ago. I asked him why did Islam have to vacate his belt? Was there a case there for him to hang on to it? Because I am still in love with an eventual Ilia Topuria Islam Makhachev fight. BC, Ali told me that it looks like Islam is not going back down to 155. Do we think that this fight is gone? The dream fight of our lives. Ilia versus Islam is it done?
Yes, I think it's gone for now. There's a glimmer of hope, and it would really involve Topuria, ne la leyenda for you Spanish speakers out there. It would involve him continuing the trend of following Conor McGregor's lead, meaning he would need to go in there, knock out Charlie Olives in an absolute sex batch of a great fight on paper, right? One of the best consolation prizes we've ever received, right? Because it ain't Ilia versus Islam, but it's not bad either. I think he would need to go in there, spectacularly win, and then say, hey, not here at lightweight for a long time, just for a really good time, and next I'm going up to welterweight. Is that likely? Not likely in this scenario. But outside of that, we may have actually missed that window. And the only thing I don't like about this scenario, Denny, my favorite Ukrainian Australian, is ultimately that Islam basically said, Ilia, what are you going to do? Come to a division, not establish yourself and get a title shot in your first fight? And that's kind of what Islam is exactly trying to do at welterweight. And I guess it's okay. That's the only part I don't like about it.
But do you think he deserves it? You know, he's got the legacy, right, Jed? Like, this is a different situation.
That just feels like the most, like, a lot of people are making that, and it feels dishonest. His response was never like, I don't want to fight the featherweight because he needs to establish himself, because he did it. He, in fact, exactly was like, is cool. He didn't want to do it a third time, which feels reasonable to me. Like, none of this conversation was ever like, actually, what Islam's asking for is pretty reasonable. Everybody was just like, I don't give a shit what Islam wants or what's fair to Islam, because I want this. What he is doing, if you are just blankly against this, I'm not opposed to that, right? They're like, hey, he doesn't deserve it in the same way Ilia didn't deserve it. Not opposed to that. I don't care, because these fights rock. Both of them are awesome. The minute Jack Della started whooping up on Bilal, I was like, damn, this is suddenly a super fun fight. Obviously, I've been wanting Charles versus Ilia the whole time, because we did a reaction show at MMAFight.com, and I had to remind people, because I think everybody just forgot 6 months ago when Ilia was like, I'm going to move up. He was specifically saying, I don't even need to fight Islam. I'll just move up and fight Charles Oliveira. And nobody was like, oh, heavens, no, he can't possibly not fight for the belt. He must fight it. They were like, that's fucking rad, dude. Let's do it. So we get back to the point of it being fucking rad, and we get this rad welterweight fight, and the fight's not dead. The fight is dead for this moment in time, because they are both now, well, I guess technically Islam's not booked, but like functionally booked or whatever. But I find it very hard to believe that Ilia Topuria has been looking around the landscape the last 4 months and been like, the fans have gone honestly a little bit insane in their pursuit of this fight. If I beat Charles Oliveira, what am I? Am I going to fight Arman Sarukian? No, I'm not going to do that shit. I'm just going to immediately be like, well, I hope Islam wins the belt, I'll move up. And if he doesn't, F it. I'll fight Jack Della if he's got the belt, if they'll let me do that. I think this fight is very much alive. I am going to, it's early days, I'm going to pick both dudes to win. And we've talked on this show, the three of us here have talked about, like, are they holding Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall for the new TV deal and something mega? I don't think that's the case. I think Jon doesn't want to fight Tom. But would it totally shock me if Ilia Topuria wins and then Islam wins and they're like, hey, Netflix, the first UFC event on Netflix is Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev for the welterweight title. Ilia Topuria chasing history, and you all finally get the fight you want. Wouldn't shock me at all. Does that suck for everybody else at 170 pounds? 100%. But that's business, baby. I think that's where we're heading, frankly.
Wait, hold a second. So you guys are on the same page. Ilia Topuria could be the first 3-division champion?
No, he will lose, but he could try for it.
Well, what if it's Islam?
Yeah, he'll lose. He was always going to lose to Islam if they fought a lightweight.
BC?
I don't know about that. I don't think it's likely we get it outside of that scenario we both mentioned there, that he would, win that lightweight belt so easily and then call him out. And if you add that scenario that Jed did of it being, potentially the first Netflix fight, I understand that. But what I'm really trying to understand is whether this is the first time two people ever made out, Dennis, on your show before. And maybe more importantly, when Jed's like, Jon doesn't want the fight. Jon would rather be on the back helmetless on a motorcycle in Thailand, rubbing his fingers through the salad of another grown man. And I think that's wonderful. But what are we doing here with that, right?
Yeah, what's going on with that? He's in Thailand with Nate Diaz. He's not preparing.
Living his best life.
What do you mean? We want this Tom Aspinall one. All right, but let's say that this Dana White said he's going to announce the fight, right? But let's say this fight does not get announced and does not get made. Is this just icing on top of the disappointment cake here? Seeing Jon Jones in Thailand having a great time, but we're all dying inside, BC?
Definitely. It definitely is, which really leads me to believe, if you would have asked the other question of relevance of the moment, is why the F has this guy not been stripped of the belt? And the reason is because they think they can still make it. And that's why Dana White said that in his fight announcement video at the end, like, don't worry, guys, we got this under control. I mean, they don't have it under control, but I think the reason why they've kept it together is just that. But I mentioned Charles versus Ilia being the consolation prize of us not getting Ilia versus Islam. I have to say, the fact that the 317 card was just firmly and fully announced and we don't have Aspinall gone on it was, to me, like the greatest victory of all time, because to me, that felt like the point of no return of like, oh, it's not just the media complaining about things anymore. These people have lost the plot. The UFC has lost its way. Even though they're threatening to make Jones Aspinall after anybody still cares about it, the fact that that's still in play is really what's keeping my hope alive, that this isn't the Titanic on its way down to a big iceberg, hoping to get every single cent and dollar out of it before they plan on flipping the brand. And maybe they're still in a position to try to make great fights, because between the hope of Jones and Aspinall in November, Max versus Dustin 3 this summer. Oh my God, DDP, Khamzat. Like, we're starting to put together some events. That buzz is starting to come back. And I'm telling you guys, it's not just in my bloodstream.
Jed, are we getting the fight? How are you feeling about it? Still no?
We were never getting the fight. If we were getting the fight, we would have got the fight already. Like, every day it delays, it's less likely that it happens, because Jon is right. He's living his best life. And I'm going to be honest, there's not a human being in the world whose best life involves fighting Tom Aspinall. That's just a shitty job. Like, no one should want to fight Tom Aspinall. It seems terrible to do, frankly. Jon doesn't need the money. If the only way this fight will ever happen, it's said it from the beginning, is if the UFC makes him an offer he cannot refuse. The UFC is just not in the business of doing that. They have no incentive to do it, really. Like, because look, everyone was like, okay, cool. And now they drop, because they can make good fights. They can make good other fights. Yes, if they come out and book Gon versus Aspinall, that will be a bummer. Like, that won't be fun. But we'll forget it because they'll be like, and the week after that, Justin Gaethje is going to fight Dustin Poirier again or something insane. I'm like, oh, that's pretty sick. They're not going to break bank for Jon. They will apparently allow him to hold the belt in perpetuity, but they're not going to, but like, that's where the credence goes. It's not we'll add a zero to this check. I am confident they have made Jon the best offer they are willing to make at this point in time.
Here. First of all, put the credence in the clear water and stop with it. They have to make this now. They've waited so long.
They should. I agree, but they're not gonna.
They have to. If they weren't going to do it, it had already been canceled. They know that ultimately there's a number that they're willing to meet Jon in the middle at. My take on this, right? No reporting, but my obvious take. They are going to stretch that out as Jon is exercising, maybe for the first time publicly, an aggressive understanding of his leverage and his brand in this moment. And I'm going to tell you, I don't hold that against him. What I do hold against is how long this process has taken, that there doesn't seem to have been a shit or get off the pot deadline, and that Jon at every single turn, public negotiation or not, is almost tarnishing his reputation or what's left of it in the meantime by actively showing us he doesn't want to fight. I think ultimately he does. He's literally trying to get life-changing, all-time great money. He found himself a payday against Nate. He stood firm in his side of the negotiation, said, no, I'm going to take this payday first. But while I'm gone, why don't you guys figure out what the real number is? They're going to meet him. They're going to give him unprecedented money. They're just not going to give what he demands. But ultimately, they're going to come close. And the reason why I have this confidence is, do you understand what it would say if they can't make Jones Aspinall right now? How much of a slap in the face of hypocrisy that would be for all the shit Dana White says about boxing and going out of business sales and one night only, when they, UFC, are the ones with the monopolistic, monsanopsic, John S. Nash, is that a damn word? Control over the sport. So use that monopolistic control and make it happen. To me, this would be the ultimate take a knee of them saying, we no longer have that control. We're not going to give you Ilia Islam. We're not going to give you this. No, they can't take that. I do think there's a limit to the bad PR they're willing to take. And I think it's too valuable a season with them negotiating with people and trying to get a number for the new TV deal that they're probably not going to get. So they have to come out in big swinging. If that's the reason why this thing is still going, this negotiation, because they know at the end of the day they have to do it, or they would be telling their fans, we talked all this shit about boxing, only we're about to get into boxing, and we've been already acting worse than boxing because we're creeping up on that being a reality.
I love your optimism. I do. Why would they care? They didn't make Jon versus Francis when both guys were actively lobbying for it. The same situation. Like they don't care. You think this is bad PR? Dana White slapped his wife on camera and they didn't break stride. He publicly apologized and that was it. They don't give a shit. The benefit to a monopoly is they don't have to. They can say, here's the number that we will pay you, Jon, and that's it. And you can take it or leave it. And if you take it, that's great business for us. And if you leave it, well, it would be better for us if you took it, but it's fine. We keep rolling. Every new location we go to, we sell out and we make more money than God. Like we are going to get $1 billion a year for our TV rights deal, whether you fight or not, Jon. So you can get this big payday and feather your nest one last time or not. And I don't blame Jon Jones for not taking this fight. I've said that from the very beginning. I have fun at his expense because I do think it is funny. I think he should 100% only fight if he feels comfortable with the number because it is a serious risk to his legacy. There's also a huge benefit to his legacy if he wins, but if he walks away right now, he is one of, if not the greatest fighter who has ever lived, and this could theoretically jeopardize it. So make sure you're getting paid your value. I hope I am wrong. This fight would be incredible. I will be at this point astonished because Jon Jones also knows that the longer this goes on, the worse it is for him because the UFC is probably not moving that number and he's not getting any younger, right? Like this is Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather. Floyd waited long enough and Manny had no real shot in that fight. The longer Jon waits, the more he is Manny Pacquiao in this fight. I don't think it's going to happen. I hope I'm wrong. Seriously, hope I'm wrong. I will be very surprised if I am.
I wish I had this on hand, BC, but you and me spoke about Jon Jones, and I wish I had the screenshot, but he wasn't too happy with us. He basically said we had little dick energy. Did you see this?
No, what are you talking about? So you're talking about the video of us talking about him was played on social media and he responded?
Yeah, he comments on Submission Radio from time to time.
He has blocked me on IG, so I believe that is.
Does he know that he's talking about Big Brian Campbell, BBC
No,
with the BDE? Let me ask you this: if this fight does not happen, Jed, and I agree with you, like technically he doesn't have to take this fight, but BC, if this fight doesn't happen after this, right? We've seen legacies get tarnished. We've seen Jon Jones get arrested. We've seen all sorts of things happen to Jon Jones, but how much do you think this impacts Jon Jones's legacy if this is the way it all happens? If this is the way it all finishes after this whole thing plays out this way that it did?
It's tough. It's tough because Jon has so much money in the bank of being the legitimate GOAT. Even if he had never won the heavyweight belt, I still think he was considered the legitimate GOAT. Winning the heavyweight belt was the ultimate cementing icing on the cake. He needed only... Yeah, he kind of bastardized that too because he fought a Gon who had no hope, and then he sat out for over a year and then fought Stipe and is now going to sit out for a year again. It's not as if this won't follow him. It will. It's just we have a sense over time of not holding that against people as much, in my opinion. So I think that it'll always be there. It won't be a first line thing in his, fighting obituary, but it will be there at the end. But he doesn't care. And that's why, to me, he's thinking they either hit my number or I walk. The pressure's on them. That's why the only reason why the UFC hasn't stripped him in my eyes is because we are going to see that fight. And they know that it's just a long staring contest. And they know they have the luxury of waiting until New York and sticking him in there and breaking the MSG gate record once again, because it's a going out of business sale. Jon Jones's final fight. Here we go. But not doing it, I don't think it will be held against him with as much penalty as people who maybe dislike him or are angry about his behavior during this sequence as much, because his legacy is so multi-tiered and stained for a lot of reasons that I think you're still going to say the same thing about him when he retires one day, whether it's the day after he retires or 10 years later. In my opinion, he was the greatest fighter of all time, but simultaneously, he's the greatest what-if story of all time. I don't think that changes even with the stain of this. It'll still be there. We'll still talk about it. But I think what he's achieved is going to outweigh the bad, even this in the end. I'm more mad at the UFC that they've let it go this far, that we're even here right now in this, but whatever. It is what it is.
There it is right there, BC. Can you believe that?
What did he say? I've got bad eyes at this age. I need my glasses.
Little dick energy.
Well, I mean,
look,
I'm an eighth Irish. I mean, he might be onto something, but listen,
I don't know. For where I come from, 4 or 5 inches is a solid college try. Jed, let's talk about Islam. I want to go back there for a second. Let's say he goes up to welterweight, fights JDM. I just spoke to JDM's head coach, Ben Vickers, in a very interesting interview. I recommend people go check it out. Such a fascinating guy, and he believes they're going to knock out Islam. After going through a bunch of footage, he doesn't think Islam is the real challenge for JDM at 170. So, Jed, I go to you. If Islam moves up to 170 in this fight, goes out against JDM, and loses in a way which is, JDM stops him, dominates him, destroys him, how much does he think that impacts Islam's legacy? Does it impact Islam's legacy at all? Or is it just one of those situations where we've forgiven Israel Adesanya for moving up to 205 and losing? Does it just fall into the basket of moving up to a division that's not really right for you?
It doesn't really impact his legacy. I mean, it will some in the short term, but honestly, it's the same thing with Jon, right? Like in the immediacy, people will just, like BC was saying, this is another thing to talk about as an asterisk to Jon's career. But there's that Brian Scalabrine quote, like after the Celtics won, it's like, in 5 years, no one's going to remember that I didn't play a minute. In 10 years, I'm going to tell my kids I started, and in 20 minutes, I'm going to be like I was or in 20 years, I'll be like I was MVP. Time will just be very kind to both of them. Islam as well here, because Islam does have the lightweight title defense record, and if Charles wins, that's great, but like he doesn't have that much time left. And if Ilia wins, I'll be pretty surprised if Ilia tries to stick around lightweight and put together a long sustained run there. because he had no interest in doing it at featherweight either. And there were plenty of opportunity. Like there were many people he could have fought at featherweight that would have been big, exciting fights. And he's like, F it. I want to go do this. I suspect something similar will happen if he does beat Charles here. And so it looks like Islam's going to have the lightweight title defense record for at least a little while. And that is like, that's the legacy. What a loss will do is, one, a lot of people who are out here arguing that Islam is trying to take the easier fight will then be like, and look at him, he got beaten, because the mental gymnastics will be impressive there. But what'll really happen is, will he retire? Will he say, okay, I said I wasn't coming back down, but now maybe I am going to cut the weight and try and do it again because I lost to JDM. I can't really get the welterweight belt. The biggest effect it will have on his legacy is he will probably not get out from the shadow of Khabib at this point, right? Like, I think there's a case that he's the greatest lightweight of all time right now. There is the big problem that Khabib exists, and Khabib was the better of the two during the time when they were both active, and Khabib left the sport for other reasons. Khabib never lost, sort of all those things that are at play with, if you're comparing their two legacies. This is an opportunity for Islam to totally break free of the shadow of Khabib, something they were both really active about. Like, after Islam won the belt, they were pretty clear about Khabib's going to step away to try and let Islam be his own entity. To some extent that's worked. To some extent, I think that shadow still lingers. If he can go up here, it will be like when Daniel Cormier won the heavyweight belt. Okay, you can nitpick his light heavyweight run. The heavyweight belt is entirely his. There's no Jon Jones of it all there. This would be significant and meaningful for Islam's legacy. And if he loses it, that's pretty unfortunate for like how we'll view him in 10 years.
Great point, Jed. And we've got some celebrities as well in the chat. First of all, BC, Luke Masita, right? Main card minute. Joining us. Jed out here quoting White Mamba. Big fan of you, Luke. You're killing it all the time. And we've got that Australian connection, right, BC? So,
that guy's dad's balls, right? Wow, yeah.
And what about this? A friend of ours as well, Oscar Willis, jumping in, has a question for BC. Actually dropped a couple of dollars. BC sold me crack and got my mum pregnant.
I love Oscar
BC.
Willis.
Is there a phone call coming through, or what's going on?
Are you Oscar's father? Is that what Oscar's saying?
No way. I could, no. But I love that guy, Oscar. If I ever plan to, get into the white lightning, I'm gonna call that guy. All right, believe me.
Yeah. By the way, I love he's doing this new therapy session content on Mac Life, and I can't wait. He did Craig Jones. He did Corey saying, hey, again, I can't wait to see what happens next, obviously. I love it. I love how he tries to do different stuff, man. The guy's always killing it. So shout out to Oscar, man.
Great hang, too. Great hang, Oscar Willis.
Oh, yeah. He's a very good hang.
Like a sub before midnight hang. I can't hang with him after midnight.
You're not a young man anymore.
I've hung out with both, and I will hang out with both again. Quick question, BC. Let's say it's a Rocky scenario. Khabib and Islam are in the gym. It's just both of them. They ring the bell, there's no one around, and then they go. Who do you think wins between the two?
I love these type of questions. These are the type of questions that I'll be sitting by the fire pit in my backyard with a cold beer for the next 4 decades, riffing with whatever neighbor walks by or any dogs in the neighborhood, and just having these type of deep debates. I actually think it's not much of a bold statement, but Islam is a more well-rounded, better complete mixed martial artist of the two. But Khabib, not just because he's got, that sort of big brother vibe against Islam, but I just think Khabib is more dominant, is more shut down when it matters. And it will be between the two of them, he would big brother him and find a way. But we are talking about two of the, greatest, possibly even two of the 10 to 12 greatest fighters we've ever seen before. So it is rarefied air, but Khabib had that one up on so many people, and I think that carries into mythical matchmaking like this, because if he wants to keep you on your back, you're going to be on your back. Maybe even another Dagestani from his gym.
Jed, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, they fought all the time, and I know that maybe Islam leveled up a little after Khabib's thing, but Khabib is there are days when I just am like, Khabib's the best fighter I've ever seen. He just, because of the nature of his career, he doesn't have a real credible claim to GOAT. It was truncated as a result of it. If he had stuck around, I think he would have certainly defended the title against Charles Oliveira or Michael Chandler, whoever the hell else happened. I think if he had been willing to fight Kamaru Usman, he would have taken the belt from him. I've never seen Khabib get beat up. Questionable that he won the Gleason Tebow fight. He didn't even get beat up in that. Tebow just defended takedowns. He's the only fighter I can say. I've seen Jon Jones get beat up multiple times. And Jon has won every fight he's been in, but for the Matt Hamill one. But I have seen Jon get beat up. I've never seen Khabib get beat up. His career will always be the biggest what if, because on a lot of days where we're like, yeah, he's probably just the best fighter ever. And he's not, well-rounded in the way that we think of George St. Pierre, but dude, he was a dominant force of nature that is hard to reconcile losing to a dude he trained against every day of his life.
It's just one of those questions, right? You keep asking GSP or Khabib, who would have won in that scenario? But you can't take away the fact that when GSP won that middleweight belt, man, he was out of there quick. He wasn't hanging on to it like Jon Jones was, right? He was like, see you guys later. I beat Michael Bisping and I'm out of there. So you got to give the guy that credit. But you also got to wonder, what would have happened if GSP stuck around in middleweight? That was an interesting time at middleweight. He beat Michael Bisping, but do we think that he got out at the right time? Jed, let's just play this out for a second. Let's say he hung around and fought the Robert Whittakers of the world. Do you think GSP would have been able to get a couple of title defenses in middleweight?
No, I think GSP was extremely aware of what he was doing. He came back because he knew he could beat Michael Bisping. Most people thought he could. He did it. Credit to Bisping, who was honestly more competitive in that fight than I thought, especially at that stage of his career. But he sniped that. He's like, yep, I could definitely win that fight. They're going to give me that fight. I will take that fight. And maybe he could beat Robert Whittaker at that stage of his career. I would have strongly picked Robert Whittaker, especially at that stage of Whittaker's career. He was never, it's hard to say. The thing with a Yoel Romero is anyone could beat Yoel, but also Yoel could beat anybody. It kind of just depends on how much he tries to fight you, especially at that point. I think GSP knew exactly what he was doing. It is always, his middleweight title is legitimate, but definitionally, but has always felt a little sus just because of the circumstances around it. And if he had tried to defend it, I think he would have lost.
BC?
I think he would have diminished returns at middleweight against all of the killers of the time. He picked the perfect fight, the perfect champion with flaws and an aging one to take advantage of that. And I don't hold it against him. I do think it's softly a double standard that we don't penalize GSP for agreeing to stay on and defend that middleweight title to Dana and then being like, hey, just kidding, and walking away, while we are very quick to do that about Jon Jones in certain instances. Although if we're comparing sins, right, the meter on the Jon Jones side just keeps going up. So I get that.
George did at least leave.
Yes, but
George lied. We all knew he was lying. We wrote stories that George says he's doing this, but pretty clearly this is a lie. But then he left. He left 10 days later or whatever.
Well, that's why I'm saying
get to Thailand with Nate Diaz.
You can't ultimately compare it. But my biggest what if for GSP isn't the middleweight division. It's had he lingered after the Bisping fight, and I don't mean full time. I don't mean let me enter the top 10 rankings per se, but if he would have definitely picked a certain number of super fights or maybe even drop in on a title fight, I think that we were robbed of some very good fights that could have, even with a few losses in between, uplifted his own almost impeccable resume all time and helped others out. The most important other is Khabib. And let's not forget, when GSP was pushing a couple of years ago for that Khabib fight, and it felt like Dana didn't want to reward him with it, maybe because of GSP double crossing him over the middleweight title situation. I felt like if he was willing to make lightweight and said he could, even in a loss, just going in there, having that super fight of different generations against Khabib, it would have been great for him, great for the sport, and super great for Khabib, who has that truncated all-time great resume. But if you take this into account, imagine if GSP had fought a super red-hot Conor McGregor at welterweight in a pay-per-view. Imagine if he had taken on either Woodley or Usman at the peak of their powers, when people are trying to argue, is their reign closing in on GSP's all-time great reign? I think we could have got a couple of
he would have gotten obliterated.
do you think the prime the prime version of Woodley and Usman, you think older GSP at welterweight gets obliterated by them after that?
Oh no, I thought you were talking Conor McGregor. I was like, oh, Conor would die because Conor tried those. No, doesn't obliterated. It would have been a tough fight. It would have been really tough fights for him. Just because he's older and time is very unforgiving. Ask Jose Aldo.
Wait, are you saying that Conor McGregor beats GSP?
No. I was saying Conor dies to Tyron Woodley or Kamaru Usman.
Yeah.
Hey, he tried to fight Woodley. I don't know if you guys
remember. He did.
The press
I very much remember.
Something going. Remember that?
Almost
Woodley
tried to fight him at weigh-ins.
That's right. I tried to get a thing going between them where he once says, "I want all the belts." All right. Let me ask you this then, guys. Let's say Islam, because when I was talking to JDM's coach, they don't think Islam is the real challenge to him at 170, right? BC, who is the real challenge for JDM at 170? If we move Islam aside and we say, all right, he gets through him, who's the real challenge?
Until he fully proves that it's not true, the answer is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov. And let's keep that respect on that butcher's name, even though he was humanized while injured by a guy I so greatly want to say the real answer to, and that's Ian Machado Gary, but even I can't pull that trigger. Here's what I do believe, though. Ian Machado Gary is a very tough out for JDM, and I don't really understand, or Islam at 170, and I don't understand the people that are like, oh, he'll get absolutely blown away. No, both guys he would hold to a certain amount of check because of his size, distance control, and defensive ability. But the real test in this division for any fighter is Shavkat, and I hope that recovering from this surgery, we're going to get back to seeing that dude version of Shavkat again.
Jed, is it Shavkat? We've got Sean Brady. Like you did mention Ian Gary there. We've got Buckley. We've got some killers right there at set 170.
170 rips. The real challenge is Islam, because that's the next one. He's not fighting Shavkat next. He's not fighting Ian Machado. He's fighting Islam. And I, always feel confident in yourself. You don't become the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world by accident. You don't just trip and fall into being almost like not unanimous. I'm sure there are people who disagree, but the broad consensus agreement that you're the best fighter alive. You should super not underestimate that dude, especially when he's 2-0 against your jiu-jitsu coach right now. Like Craig Jones, like this is, I think most people would agree with the assessment that Islam is a better fighter than Bilal. And I know you beat Bilal, and I know you might still get better between now and the time you fight Islam. That fight was competitive. Go rewatch it. Like he won. I scored it 4-1, but most of those rounds were very competitive. It is 2 judges had 2 rounds for Bilal, and Islam is better than Bilal. The real challenge is the dude you're fighting next, who's the best fighter on goddamn earth. And you better come correct, because he doesn't fight like Bilal. They're not the same stylistic battler at all. So outside of that, like if he does get past Islam, then there are no reinforcements coming. It is just hitter after hitter after hitter. And some of it will be stylistic, right? Like Shavkat, I've just thought for a long time, Shavkat is the best welterweight alive. So I would agree with BC. Shavkat presents the next biggest challenge afterwards. But Joaquin Buckley has looked amazing. Granted, he's raiding the retirement home to some extent, but he's looked amazing in this run at welterweight. Machado Gary, I think, is criminally underrated because people just don't like his ass, which is fine. Michael Morales is about to do horrible things to Gilbert Burns on Saturday. That dude's coming up. Carlos Pratis, I know he just got set back, still in there. Like the mix at 170 right now is full of awesome, sick fighters. And so, like, if Jack Della manages to get past Islam, which he is not the current betting favorite to do, by the way, every step of the road just gets progressively harder. This is a throwback to the good days of welterweight, the George St. Pierre title run of welterweight against monster after monster, not Kamaru Usman fighting Jorge Masvidal 2 times and Colby Covington twice and just reheating the same old stale garbage.
And we've got a comment here to say that Jed is the most honest man alive. But Jed, I also remember last week when you were saying we're not going to get a JDM Islam fight because JDM isn't beating Bilal. Are we Are we sort of, how are we feeling right now? You're
I feel great about it because I lost money betting on Bilal because I bet on him at the beginning of the week. And then I actually like went and watched tape and was like, oh shit, Jack's going to win. And so like I had changed my tune, but I was already priced into the bet. So I covered both my bases, but yeah, after like actually looking into it, listening to smart people like Morning Combat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell, I was like, oh yeah, Jack Slack, shout out to him. I was like, oh, Jack actually has a really good chance to win this fight.
Look at him backtrack, BC. Who do you think wins between JDM and Islam?
I'm giving Islam that same benefit of the doubt that Jed is, and I don't mean to completely align with Jed because outside of maybe being an absolute dirt hole at our cores, we don't typically align in much. But I will say that we're looking at the best fighter in the world, 33 years old, peak of his powers. I know he's moving up in weight, but I've always felt he would slide into this weight class without a major hurdle. And look, JDM is absolutely for real, and it's super fun that when given an opportunity at the title in a crowded, division that it's stacked at the top and too many people are seemingly owed title shots. And I questioned at 14 months coming off a layoff and 3 close fights if he deserved it. And then he goes out and super exceeds with the performance and shows you the evolution and the growth. It's going to be a hellaciously fun fight. Again, it's a consolation to not getting Ilia versus Islam. But if our consolation is 2 big title fights we want to see, meaning Charles and Ilia, and now this one, Islam versus JDM, you got to be fired up. But we may have seen an improvement in the wrestling with Craig Jones in his corner for JDM. But Islam's a different kind of wrestler, in my opinion. The most complete fighter in this game, arguably the smartest fighter in this game. I still like him to win, but damn, I got to see this. So let's freaking go. Let's go. Let's make these matches.
I reckon this Bilal fight. Yeah, go.
Dennis, am I crazy to close this epic spiel by saying IMG Ian Machado Gary will wear UFC gold before his career is over? I'm just not convinced it'll come in his first shot at it.
I'm
Take
with you.
that, Jed. Rub that right here, Jed. Okay.
I'm with you. I have long been of the opinion that Ian Machado Gary is really good and people just hate him. And some of that hate is justified. Some of it feels unjustified, but like every time you watch that dude fight, it's like, yeah, he really knows how to fight and he's getting better at it. Like he's very, very good and he's only getting better. He's young. I do think he probably ends up getting a belt at some point in time, but I wouldn't bet my life on it just because of how like sick welterweight is right now. Like one loss might set you back at the end of a long queue at this point in time.
I just think that him not fighting for the belt next is probably for the best. I think he's still got to tighten up a couple of things and maybe fighting a Leon Edwards or something like that and just working on. I think JDM beats him if he fights him today. I really do. Do you guys agree?
I'd probably pick JDM, but I think that's very competitive.
I think it would be JDM.
Jed just hates JDM. He never picks him.
Yeah, I think it would be JDM.
I said I'd pick JDM.
No, you weren't. You didn't look like you were convinced. You were giving me the like.
It's a competitive fight.
Yeah,
I love JDM. JDM is my favorite because JDM went on Ariel's show and was like,
look at him go. Look at him.
No, JDM was like, hey, I want to fight Islam and then I want to fight Shavkat. And that's fucking sick. JDM didn't go, I'm going to fight Islam and then move up to middleweight. He's like, I think I'm going to beat the two dudes right now. That's fucking cool, man.
JDM had the coldest line at the press conference when they asked him about those M&Ms and Ian Gary. So he's in the pocket at all times. Let's talk about DDP and Khamzat, fellas, because I saw on the news wire right there, Imavov is the backup fighter for that fight. We know that Khamzat doesn't traditionally make it to a lot of his fights. Fingers crossed that he makes it to this one because this is one of the best fights you can make. But BC, is DDP fighting Khamzat Chimaev or is he going to be fighting Imavov come the fight time?
God, I hope it's Chimaev. Look, it's on U.S. soil here, so in Chicago, so all bets are off until we see it. I know Dana has repeatedly said when asked that there's no visa issues that he knows about for Khamzat in terms of U.S. travel. And oh, by the way, maybe they can just call their boy Don, and I don't mean two ends on that, to get that thing, that shit cleared. But the end of my political takes for a second, I'll ultimately say that, good Lord, can I not wait for this fight? And I refuse to cling to the fear that is naturally in all of us of exactly that. Khamzat showing up, whether it's some type of weight fiasco or another injury or another triple post-COVID bypass or whatever he had that time. I will say this, I'm not going to fall into that fear. My fear, though, is that he will be there. I just want the very best of him to show up. I don't want any other issues. I want to see for 5 rounds what he really has. And I think I like that the early odds have him actually as the favorite over DDP, but I think this is such an incredible matchup that let's get past our fears here. Let's get him there. And then let's also hope, fingers crossed, that it's 100% of him, because it's time. It's time to find out if this guy is the star we've been waiting for. And he's a heel on top of that, but the true breakout star that we've been waiting for. When he's on his game, he runs through people. He ruins their faces. He also may have been part of a weight miss conspiracy so that Nate Diaz didn't have to exit the company looking up at the lights. But we don't do that kind of talk on this podcast. So let's just say no Imavov at no time. Respect for that man for climbing the ladder. But this is about summer blockbusters. This is about let's wake up those, maybe not those dirt casual fans, but how about those part-time semi-UFC fans? This is the type of fight that we don't complain about. So let's go. Let's see it. Enough of this. No more Imavov talk. We're going to get the good stuff here. This is one of the best fights you can make in the entire sport. Let's go,
That's
Dennis.
Let's go, BC. Tinfoil hats aside, this thing needs to go down. Imavov sitting around, refusing to fight. Now he's in this backup role. Ian Gary was in the same role just the other week. Means absolutely nothing, right? If you got RDR fighting Brobble Whittaker next.
Goddamn right. Yeah, man. Mateusz Gamrot was the backup fighter once upon a time, and they didn't even, the fighter pulled out. Charles Oliveira pulled out, and they didn't even let him fight. They were like, all right, Volkanovski, can you fight on 2 weeks notice? Backup fighter don't mean shit unless you're Colby Covington. Then it means the world. Otherwise, it doesn't mean a thing. God, I hope he doesn't get involved here. This fight rips. DDP versus Khamzat. Like we knew this fight was coming. It was a matter of when. I thought it would be International Fight Week until all that hoopla went down. But hey, shout out to Chicago. They got a Pope. Now they got DDP versus Khamzat. I mean, everything coming up Windy City right now. This fight's going to be insane. And yes, if Dricus du Plessis, not if, he's going to beat Khamzat. I'm standing on that corner right now to tell you this.
Whoa.
He is going to beat Khamzat Chimaev.
What's the case?
Have you seen him fight? He's the best. People don't understand that my big, beautiful boy is the best, and he is. Khamzat will have a good first round. He won't break his face off like he did Robert Whittaker, and then Khamzat will be tired. And DDP is always tired. He was born into tired. He will not slow down despite being tired, and he's just going to start putting it on Khamzat as the fight goes on. He will retain his title. RDR, I'm sorry to say, Dennis, he is going to choke out your boy, Robert Whittaker, the same as my guy DDP did to him. And then suddenly Nasruddin Imavov is going to be like, shit, I should be fighting for it, but they're making me fight Kyle Braulio while DDP and RDR fight, and I'm the happiest man alive.
Hey, I wouldn't mind seeing RDR get a shot. I feel bad for the guy. He's a breath of fresh air in the division. But BC, do you agree with Jed here? Are we going to see DDP come out on top over Khamzat?
I really think that I'm going to do one of those same things that Jed just did. He's doing it early, loud, and proud, but I had a feeling that I would end up getting to August when this fight will take place. And my biggest fear, again, not being that he won't show up, meaning Khamzat, but my biggest fear for him is, does he actually have 5-round championship cardio when he is met with resistance? I'm not convinced he's a front runner, but when he has complete control, he mobs shit up. I mean, considering where he was in the court of public opinion after blowing weight for that Nate Diaz fight, and then what he did to Kevin Holland in like a minute plus, like, yeah, those are beautiful to see. But DDP will be that resistance that will it lead to an upset win as champion? I think I'm going to pick it that way because I've got to see Khamzat be in not a 25, not a 15-minute, maybe unnecessary war against Gilbert Burns where it was exciting as hell. And there is a backdoor argument for why Gilbert could have won that fight on the cards, but I needed over 5. And the one great skill that DDP has in that lumbering raw style of his is that, man, he knows how to win close fights. Physically, he's going to be there. He's going to be a problem. I know his deficiency is wrestling, so that's why the first couple rounds how we look at a knockout guy having a puncher's chance, the wrestler's chance will certainly be there for Khamzat. That's why he's the favorite. But yeah, Jed and I are agreeing probably a little too much in this show for the sake of the entertainment value. But I'm feeling what that disbarred lawyer is putting out there right now. And, that Musk is something, but I'm feeling it man to man,
Two things, BC. One, I take personal offense that you say he has one great skill. DDP has all great skills. And two, look at us, man. Look at how far we've come from you being like, you're categorically insane if you think Dricus du Plessis is going to beat Robert Whittaker. You're an idiot. He has no chance to win this fight. Look at you. I'm so proud of you.
Alan W, DDP, the best, worst fighter ever. I mean, you can't deny the fact that whatever he does works, and it works better.
That's like a direct quote from Israel Adesanya. He and Whittaker talking about it, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Best shit fighter ever. Yeah.
You better. It's better.
Dude, he's so weird. Like, I was like, man, I'm killing you, and then suddenly I was unconscious. Listen, he's the best bad fighter I've ever seen.
You want to be the best worst fighter, not the worst best fighter, right? And we've seen that over and over in the UFC. BC, I want to know from you right here and now. Let's say DDP does beat Khamzat here. He is sneakily getting the championship resume of a lifetime. No? Yeah. I mean, I keep talking to people about, like, when are we going to start putting respect on the man's name, in the sense that talking about his championship run as being something special. On the way to the belt, he beats Whittaker. He's beaten Izzy. He's beaten Strickland. Now Khamzat. Let's say he goes out there and dominates him. When are we going to start?
He beat Strickland twice, by the way.
Twice?
Yeah, he did.
When are we going to start taking this guy's championship run seriously? Not just in the fact that he's getting the title defenses, but against the quality of the opponents.
Well, I think
that he's beating here.
Yeah, I think the last fight is when a lot of us woke up, if we weren't willing to give him that credit, where he wasn't in the pound for pound only because the name he beat. He was putting forth incredible performances within his own kind of raw, clunky skill set. But those names don't lie. Those former champions in succession don't lie. If he's the first one to defeat Chimaev, then I know what I'm about to say sucks, because it fits into the modern day stereotype we all hate, that we don't have these long, illustrious, singular title reigns in UFC, because everybody wins a title and then instantly or soon after wants to jump up and get a second title, because we all want to follow McGregor's path to immortality. But if I'm DDP and I've already beaten the guys I've beaten, and then as a betting underdog, I go in there and beat Chimaev, my next step is making sure the belt gets back on Poatan at 205 so that DDP can move up and try to become a 2-division champion in an absolute another can't miss super fight that we would need to see. Obviously, Poatan's got big onk issues that he's got to get through, but damn, yes, that's where DDP would be. It snuck up on us, but he's earned it the old-fashioned way, the hard way. He's learning on the job how to have technique and game plan and understanding. But every time they teach him something new, he just adapts to it in water. The guy's incredible. He probably would wear his collar up high looking to steal your girlfriend at the keg party. And I'm not saying you should be okay with that. But I'm saying let's put some respect on this guy's name. It took me a long time to get there, but damn, you know what I mean? And now, yeah, damn, right? Damn. I mean, Jed was a whisperer on that. He knew it deep inside. And, that's a rare moment for us in the MMA space.
And Alan W goes, Dricus walks around 235. He's posing as a 205. Jed, you were having a seizure over there. What's going on?
Oh, BC's like almost all the way there, but he's not quite, because after he wins, then it's RDR. We got to do RDR. It's just the best fight. I can't tell you how much goddamn fun that fight would be. After that, it's not about Poatan, right? Like if it is Poatan, that's cool. What it's about Yuri. Let's let Yuri go beat Big Onk time, because DDP versus Yuri is a fight I have called for like 3 years now, outside of any title. Just, I would very much like to see those two big, goofy, silly men try to hurt each other in the most violent and hilarious fashion. If we can get a DDP RDR into DDP Yuri for the light heavyweight belt, I'm walking away. The sport's never going to get better than that for me. I'll be like, hey guys, it's been great. Dennis, thanks for having me on. I'm out. I retire on the peak, because that is peak MMA. If this can be DDP beats Khamzat, Reiner de Ritter, Yuri, chef's kiss.
I think that's a great way to just finish the sport, right? Go for UFC 3, whatever,
Be done.
22, back to UFC 1. It's full circle moment in the sport of MMA. BC, RDR first, then we do 205.
I mean, we got to hope RDR beats Whittaker. And hope's a real rough word there because, I mean, you know, Robert Whittaker is a living legend, one of my favorite fighters that has ever walked this earth. But, like, I'm not new to the Dutch Knight, right? I was interviewing him ahead of his Big One championship attempts to become a 3-division champion. This has been so incredibly refreshing that, yeah, I guess if he adds Robert Whittaker to the names that he's beaten and the manner that he's beaten them in just 6 months on the job so far with the UFC, and that attitude he brought with him, that was, I was too cocky at one trying to beat heavyweights. Now I'm just coming here for the fun of it. I mean, that's what he told me when I talked to him ahead of his UFC debut. I don't care about the title, whatever. I just want to fight a lot. I want to fight big names. I want to have fun, and I just want to whatever, right? Well, that attitude has perfectly set him up. I'm glad he has rebounded from the ways in the GM3 debut that were awful, meaning he just stood there with no head movement or tucking his chin and took so much unnecessary punishment. But when he leaned so hard into his specialty here as a quick ground threat, I almost don't count the way he stopped Bo Nickel as, you know, something he normally will do to others. But yeah, man, it is really fun watching this guy's ride. I guess if he goes out there and does shit to Whittaker, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time you just drop everything and put this.
If he finishes Whittaker 100%, he is jumping the line. He's got all the momentum behind him right now after the Bo Nickel win, which is why you take that Bo Nickel fight, right? He's not ranked, but you do that. You got all this juice. Now you get Robert Whittaker. I'm pretty sure that if he goes and finishes Bobby Knuckles, they're just gonna be like, all right, we got to do it, man. We just strike while the iron's hot.
Did you see JDR traded in the repellent blonde dyed hair that he had for the Meerschaert fight? Now instead, he's not messing with the hair. He's just doing a Stephan Bonner and the Anderson Silva match level spray tan job that he's got going on.
I like it. He looks like a Luke Rockhold.
It screams superstar. Yeah, it screams superstar. You got to do that. I mean, that's the one thing we can say. RIP to Bonner. Yeah, he roided up for that Silva fight and didn't belong there in the first place.
Oh, man, yeah, he's my favorite. Yeah,
he effed up and made a huge mistake and then deserved to have lost the way he did. But, man, he put commitment into that pre-fight tan. Like, he looked like he was ready for Dancing with the Stars right there.
He was
like,
also
that's how I want to be remembered, you know?
The biggest angle in Bellator history, right? Where it's
that's right.
Under the mask.
Face off.
The man under the mask.
It was him. I was going to just quickly say, by the way, when I was talking to RDR, he said he had no idea that people called him Goofy until his wife brought it up to him because she manages all of his social media channels. And he had a brief but good message to everybody out there. Fuck him. So you got to love RDR, man. Nothing bothers that,
It's said with love, RDR. When I call you my goofy, medium-sized son, it's said with love.
He's coming for you, Jen. Hey, before we wrap up, guys, one last thing. I was talking to Ali Abdelaziz yesterday about a couple of things, and one of the things he told me was Movsar does not have a fight booked in. We thought that potentially he could be next for Alex Volkanovski. From what I'm hearing now, he may have to fight one more time. But that got me thinking. If he's fighting one more time, who the hell is fighting Alex Volkanovski for the belt? BC? Surely it's not John Silva, so that must mean what? Yair in Mexico?
Yeah, that really screams Yair in Mexico. That really does. That's a Noche fight. The question is, will that fight card be in Mexico, considering the arena in Guadalajara doesn't appear like it's close to being ready in time?
Good pronunciation, sir.
Oh, believe me, I co-host the show twice a week with one of the. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is here, and also, by the way, Turki Al-Sheikh just apparently moved the Canelo fight for the same night. We may have some TKO issues right there, but that is the way they're going. You know, that's the way they're going. What else do we have to say about it? That's it.
But that's Jed, injustice, right? Come on.
I don't think they're gonna do. Yeah, I don't think they can get that over. I just don't think that's
apparently it's remotely. Movsar has to fight again. He had a fight announcement. I go, where's the fight announcement? He goes, there is no fight announcement. It's not happening.
Movsar having to fight again does not mean that he's. We saw him just obliterate Yair. Yair's done nothing to be like, yes, he lost to Brian Ortega and then beat pretty obviously old Pitbull at his UFC debut. I cannot imagine. Like, that would be one of the worst title fights ever booked. John Silva would frankly make more sense. And it seems out like it obviously is a bit ridiculous, right? But at the same time, this is a dude who is lit right now. People are very excited about him. He has captivated the imagination. He sold the shit out of that fight with Bryce Mitchell and then did what he did to Bryce Mitchell. I frankly think he would be a real fun fight for Volkanovski too, right? Like that seems more likely. It should be Movsar. There's no question Movsar should be next. If they're going to screw him, it would be a real travesty if they screwed him for a year again.
BC, imagine this scenario. Movsar has to fight again, but John Silva gets a big opponent himself while Volkanovski fights Yair. John Silva goes out there and knocks him out. Now, Movsar isn't fighting for the belt yet again, even though he wins his next fight. I mean, this is a real scenario I'm talking about. This is real life.
It is. And even though, like, I give Volk so much credit for coming back and regaining the title in this division after being knocked out and after the bad stretch he had been on with 3 losses and 4 fights, it still doesn't give me a great feeling that that somebody is a champion, and when we just witnessed them be knocked out for the title in the same division, and you didn't have to go back through that guy. So if they're going to do Yair, which I really think they will, if this fight card is in Mexico, I mean, what I'm trying to say is featherweight went from like really fun and horny to what are we doing here? Yeah, that quickly it seems like it.
All right, final thing as we wrap up. You mentioned featherweight, Jose Aldo. I'm still pissed about how this all went down. Yeah. Right? I don't know if he's really retired. He'll probably fight in some kind of game-bred boxing type event. We'll probably see him on an undercut of a Jake Paul fight. But in terms of saying this is it for him in MMA, seeing him sit in that cage after he was cutting down to bantamweight for no apparent reason to fight a guy that made absolutely zero sense. And he got gassed out because obviously physically he was just absolutely destroyed. He just never had great gas tank to begin with. But I'm sure cutting down to bantamweight at his age after all the damage that he's taken never helped. I am still salty about the way that Jose Aldo finished out his career in the UFC and the fact that we could have potentially had a Dominic Cruz, a Pitbull fight. Jed, I want to go to you first and I'll finish with you, BC. Is this one of the most mismanaged runs of a legend that we've seen in combat sports?
It's not one of it. Is there's nothing that feels remotely close. I understand the Martinez fight, right? Like, he's coming back. It's a 1-fight deal. It's in Rio. Here's a guy, just do it. It's still not even like perfect, but it's fine, right? Then when he re-signs, I can maybe, like, prior to the Jose Aldo fight, Mario Bautista was a very fun fighter. And then he just did that, which is awful. The fight still isn't a good booking because Mario, like, what are we getting out of it? Clearly he should be doing legend stuff, or Davidson Figueiredo was cooking at that point. Like, that fight would have made more sense. Anything else? What happened. We don't have to relitigate it. The Amin Zahabi is the worst of them because credit to Amin Zahabi. I don't want to take anything away from his performance this weekend. Showed a ton of heart, has vastly exceeded what I thought he could do in this sport. That win is going nowhere. Amin Zahabi is 37 years old. He's not fighting for the belt. Like, it's just not going to happen. And so you have wasted the last fight potentially of Jose Aldo's career to elevate a guy who will go nowhere with it, right? Like, it would have just been better to throw him on the altar of some, like, actual rising superstar like Umar or whatever. Like, that would have been better. And yet here we are. The only reason that I've actually, like, really come to grips with this, despite being a huge Jose Aldo guy, I don't think it's his last time. I think that what we saw Saturday night was a very real reaction to a man just being super frustrated with the circumstances, right? Of, man, like, because even in the fight buildup, he was trying to dance around it, was clearly angry about the Batista fight, about kind of how he's been booked, sort of what has been happening to him. And then he puts that fight. I scored the fight for a win. Probably not a robbery, though I'll say it's a robbery because it's way more fun for me to do that. I still thought he won the first 2 rounds of that fight and, almost won the third before he got the shit kicked out of him at the end of the third. And so to suffer that and to be dealing with all of this, I think that that's just a natural frustrated reaction. I think the same thing when he posted after this week and was like, hey, I was cutting weight and I didn't have it in me anymore. Because why would he? You're one of the all-time great fighters. Why would you give a shit about cutting to 35 to fight Amin fucking Zahabi? If you win, it's the 20th best win. Why would you possibly care about doing that? They haven't given him fights to care about. But I think he takes some time. He resets. The UFC says, hey, man, we're going back to Rio in the fall. What if we do a proper send-off? You get the full gala. You get the Anthony Smith treatment. Except for this time, we won't have to lie when we use the word legend. We'll get to say it for real. And you versus Patricio Pitbull, 145 in Rio. What do you say? I don't know how he says no to that. That would be the perfect send-off for him. It is what I am desperately hoping for. And I will keep, that is where all my optimism goes. BC's optimism is for Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall. My optimism is for Jose Aldo, Patricio Pitbull in Rio later this year.
Oh, BC, what does it feel like for us fans that, because we're fans at the end of the day, as well as people that are a part of the sport, what does it feel like something's missing? When we saw Jose Aldo sitting there like this, up against the beat up against the octagon, and like what Jed said, obviously we didn't know it was going to happen, but there was no Anthony Smith treatment. And then he just kind of retired. And then he echoed exactly the same thing you, me, Jed, and everybody else said, which is, why the hell is this guy cutting down and killing himself to get down to bantamweight for no reason? And he says, that's the reason why I'm leaving, because there's a voice in my head that's like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore.
I know.
Like, well, you shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. Break this down for me as we wrap up. How ridiculous?
I mean, it's ridiculous. The problem is you guys were both wrong off the top, in my opinion. It's not unprecedented. This is what the UFC does. They did the same thing to Anderson Silva, who was fighting Derek Brunson and Jared Cannonier. Like, I understood putting him in the Adesanya fight when they did. Not only was that like a perfect passing of the torch, but the premise was that old guy Silva with an upset win would get another title shot off of it. But like, look, here's the deal. It was already incredible when Aldo cut down to bantamweight and was like super elite right off the start. I didn't love that he got the title shot coming off a loss against Moraes, because I felt like that split decision was justified at that moment. But he could have and should have easily left the division, I think, 2 spots. One would have been after losing that title opportunity to Pereira when he took all of those bashes to the back of the skull, or 2 would have officially been after the loss to Usman, or to the current champion Merab Dvalishvili. How they handled the last 3 fights, certainly more egregious than others, but it's the same thing with how they handled Frankie Edgar, with how they handled Dominic Cruz, with how they handled insert your favorite legend. I think there's 2 ways to do it when somebody is a super extreme legend who still has enough juice to make fights, fun fights that the fans like, where you can use their name to market. There's 2 things you do. One is what we all wish they would do, which is the glorified old guy versus old guy celebrity super fight. We love it. They used to know how to do that. Remember they did Liddell against Rich Franklin at Franklin moving like that made sense. The other way is you pitch them, especially if they still got some gas left, to a real up-and-comer who can benefit from the rub. The same reason why I was always arguing that Paddy Pimblett should already fought Conor McGregor 2 years ago, for that same exact reason. You know, had they pitched Jose Aldo to fight a Peyton Talbot, who they were telling is going, or the Chihuahuas guy, who they're like, this is our future right here. You would understand that more, because somebody can gain from the rub. I'm sorry, these last 3 names, they're not going to gain from it. In fact, everybody looks worse after these 3 fights. Aldo could easily be 3-0. He deserves at least 2 of them, but he doesn't deserve the matchmaking. It was going nowhere. You guys perfectly nailed all the names he could have been fighting. But at least after that Merab loss, send him back up to feather. Look at some lightweight super fights you can make. Look at all those aging action stars. How about him? And how about dress him back up for a run at the featherweight title one more time? Imagine him against Volkanovski,
Dude,
right now, but 2 fights ago, right? Like, I'm just saying there's other ways to use the name than trying to give the rub to Mario Bautista or Amin Zahabi at 35. The frick are we doing? I really wish someone would a long time ago would have been like, Jose, you're not going to make it back up to the title at 35. So like, who do you want? What's fun here for you? Let's do this shit. Do you know how many fun fights we could have made where he would have looked like a king, win or lose?
Instead of
bitches.
Instead of Martinez, Batista, and Zahabi, we could have had Jose Aldo versus Dominic Cruz, Davison Figueiredo, and Patricio Pitbull. Like, I can't stress to you. Or like, shit, Sean O'Malley, throw him in there. At least he gets the rub. Like,
how about everybody? Yes, come on.
Let me tell you something. At a time when you have no fights, And you have no main events for your fight nights or whatever. You got no card. You had no fights for your pay-per-views. Just the fact they couldn't even book them just for their own personal business gain is just outrageous, let alone for the fact to keep fans happy and give the guy what he deserves.
Well, hey, let's give a video package to Anthony Smith and Karate Hottie. What the frick are we doing, you know? But let's do nothing when Stipe walks away, right? Because we only needed his old ass.
We didn't know he was going to walk away.
Happy.
He said he was going to stick around, which obviously was a lie, like GSP's lie. Dude, Mike and I talked about this in the watch party. If he had, like, when it looked like he was going to beat Zahabi and suddenly that fight was booked at 145, I was like, hey, what if he wins and just gets on the mic and is like, a lot of people out here saying I'm not the GOAT. Well, Volkanovski got the belt back. You and me, one more time, GOAT status on the line. How would that fight not have been booked? That fight would have been insane. It would have been kind of silly, and Volk probably wins or whatever. But like, if Movsar was going to get screwed, at least it would have been screwed for something fun, not Yair again.
Boxing match with Conor McGregor. That's what's next for the big guy, and I'm hoping he's going to make a lot of money in it. And if I'm the UFC, I'm just moving them up to some kind of crazy weight class, and I would have just made that happen. Just make anything significant happen for both guys. All right, guys, as we wrap up. BC, MK, your channel, what's coming up? You got the live streams as well. What can people get into?
Yeah, watch MK every Monday and Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern on the Morning Combat YouTube channel. I do have a YouTube channel called The Brian Campbell Experience that occasionally spits out weird and uninteresting content, but I hope you stumble into it just the same. And, you know, Jed works at a pretty good website. They're the old MMA to the F.
It's a great
Check
website.
out my work at